sacrifice here, though one would say never go full sacrifice. We'll see. Let's take a look at our openers. Hey, Phyrexian Tower, you're really powerful, but you're the only land in that hand, so might have to send that one back if you're Michael.
But it's legendary.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think Phyrexian Tower is probably the best land in this format.
Yeah,
definitely the most powerful.
I don't think there's a probably about it.
Okay.
Just absolutely incredible. Just is Eldrazi Temple for all the decks with creatures.
Yeah, there's a lot to like there. You do mention it's legendary, and that matters. And Michael's hand is not. Yep, that's the frustration hover right there. We're going to 5, big guy. Unless you're really feeling it with this one, I think we're going to 5.
So Inglis is on the play, which conversely means that Bonde is on the draw. You do get to keep some shakier hands as a result of that.
I like this keep from Michael insofar as you're trying to maximize Collected Company, and that's all you can really do right now.
Yep, I agree with that. I think here you're just trying to keep Mayhem Devil, because that's the most important card in the matchup, as it just, similar to Jim Palm Incinerator in those Goblins mirrors, it just is something that sees both sides of the battlefield trying to function and pays you for it.
There's a Stomping Ground tap. Let's go! Game number 1 of the finals underway. Jund Sacrifice Mirror, though these builds are very different. So when we get these deck lists posted on Star City Games, and if you're looking for more information about this format, you're going to find that these deck lists, while they are the same style of deck, they are trying to accomplish, I would say similar things, but they're going about doing it a different way. As here's a Witch's Oven here from Michael.
Yeah, both of these decks like Mayhem Devil, but I don't want to say that's where the similarities end. But other than Woe Strider and some cosmetic stuff, it feels like that is kind of where the similarities end.
Yeah, it's kind of wild. And I think grouping them as the same archetype is correct, but it's always nice to see that you can build an archetype multiple different ways. And that's what we're seeing with these two players, which just kind of goes to show you that this archetype might be one of the very best ones in Historic, because we're still figuring out the best way to build it. And we've got 2 players playing the deck, in the finals.
Yeah, and that just shows the strength of Mayhem Devil in a creature-dominated format. Right, it's similar to the Priest of Forgotten Gods thing that we saw earlier in the day in some of those Rakdos Elementals decks.
I'm a little tired of Mayhem Devil.
Someone has to be. I'm not. Yeah. Big Mayhem Devil fan over here. So I'm it's just the new Nantuko Husk. I love getting paid for sacrificing creatures, and it's something that does that beautifully.
Just always losing my opponent resolves a Mayhem Devil, so not particularly fond of it at all.
Oh my god, You're the guy I'm always beating. This is awesome. It's so good to meet you.
This is not fun for me. Here we go. We have a Woe Strider and Mayhem Devil on the battlefield, and Michael doesn't really have much of anything going on. He knows he can't really play much of anything either. Anything he plays is just going to get kind of shot by Mayhem Devil that's on the battlefield. So we are in kind of I'm going to call it a weird holding pattern so far as he's got to start probably with Collected Company and then go from there.
And Inglis finding a copy of Cauldron Familiar is so huge with Mayhem Devil, because when it's paired with this Witch's Oven, with that Woe Strider, that just translates to a bunch of free instant speed forked bolts, and when you're a creature deck, that's just a nightmare.
Well, folks, it could be a quick game 1, is what I'll say here, so don't go anywhere, because we could be heading to sideboard and reading you a live ad in less than 3 minutes here.
And this is one of the hard things about this matchup.
There you go.
Yeah, see, right there is it just snowballs so quickly when you're leaning in this hard to creatures. Your actual tools for catching up are not necessarily the best, because they're contingent on you having a board presence, right?
Absolutely, and that one did not take long, folks. Not at all. Michael Bonde immediately concedes that game, knowing he's beat once that battlefield presence is built. So we're going to go to game number 2 as David Inglis very quickly wins game number 1. They're sideboarding. We're talking chairs, more specifically Karnox chairs. Karnox.com/SGG. You can save 10% at checkout when you use that link, kind of an affiliate link there. So go check out all the offerings that they do have. I'm actually sitting in a Karnox chair right now. So you can save 10% at checkout. Again, use that link, Karnox.com/SCG. Emma, I'm going to ask you really quickly, because you do love a sacrifice strategy, and you are playing a deck at the Mythic Invitational Goblins, which does have some, minor sacrificing going on with Skirk Prospector. I presume you've tested multiple variants of sacrifice strategies, but decided to go with the gobos instead. What didn't work for you for these sacrifice decks?
So the biggest issue that I had with the sacrifice decks was they just weren't the most resistant to a lot of these sweeper decks, right? There were so many different ways that you could build your deck, but it was hard to be good against the likes of, say, Massacre Worm, while also being good against Extinction Event, while also being good against Teferi, while also being good against Skirk Prospector, and so on, where it felt like you could build to be great against 2.5 of them, but not against all of them. And when you're going into an unknown metagame, just leaning into raw power rather than meta calls is kind of a place I'm a bit more comfortable with most of the time.
That makes 2 of us. Also, it's not going to be a hard sell for you to say Goblins is really good. So I'm on board with you. I look at these sacrifice decks, and obviously they're very powerful, but I do agree with you. Trying to figure out the best way to go about building them is definitely difficult.
I just don't want to register the wrong deck.
Oh, for sure. For sure. Cauldron Familiar to kick things off via an Overgrown Tomb. Here's a Swamp. There's a Witch's Oven. We're underway here for game number 2. Michael's going to need a 3rd land to really be able to get himself into this game. His hand is totally fine. He does have a red source of mana. So here's another Cauldron Familiar. Magma Spray at the ready. Multiple copies of Mayhem Devil. You've already mentioned that that's an incredibly, incredibly important card for the mirror. But if you don't have a 3rd land to cast it, it doesn't matter all that much. So right, there's a Cauldron Familiar. Go ahead.
I imagine Magma Spray is on Inglis's radar. If not, just for the fact that Bonde got priority when Inglis cast it.
Okay, sure, the Arena Tell.
Right, exactly. So there's a black 1-drop or a red 1-drop that you can cast there. It's
Gotcha.
basically the information that Inglis got.
All right, so in response to the Mayhem Devil, sacrifice your Fabled Passage, sacrifice your Kitty Cat. Okay, now here's Liliana's Defeat. Get that thing out of here. Now a land. It's going to end the battlefield tapped and kick it back. So good sequencing there from Inglis. But Bonde does have a follow-up here in another Mayhem Devil, potentially. There's your trigger from Cauldron Familiar. Again, remember this is all in response to Mayhem Devil, because Mayhem Devil causes a lot of havoc when it's on the battlefield, so we can't have any of this nonsense going on.
So this could end up being so brutal in this Mayhem Devil duel for Bonde to have access to Magma Spray, just because it actually means that Bonde gets to kill Mayhem Devil before Inglis could snowball enough triggers to kill Bonde's.
Got it. Phyrexian Tower, okay. We'll see how that powerful land's going to work itself into the equation here.
We could see Corvold this turn.
I'd be down with Corvold this turn. Mayhem Devil's in. And now, let the triggers begin. Am I right?
Ooh, and see, this is that rough spot where, especially because Inglis is doing this on his turn rather than on Bonde's, this means Bonde's triggers are going to resolve before Inglis's.
Yep. And there you see that Magma Spray that you talked about and how it's going to work itself into the equation. See, the the scary thing to me in a sacrifice mirrors and stuff like that, if you're well tested, it's not a bother. But if you don't feel like you're up to snuff and up to speed in the sacrifice mirrors, the better player, I'm not saying is always going to win, but you really got to understand the intricacies of this matchup and when to deploy Mayhem Devil, how to use your Witch's Ovens and your Cauldron Familiars, all that stuff. Because look at the stack. There's 6 things on the stack right now.
Yeah, this is one of the most brutal portions of the matchup, and I wouldn't even say that Inglis necessarily wasn't in the know. This was Inglis choosing to play around Collected Company instead of Magma Spray. Sure. For example, It's just that there was no winning that exchange, and that's kind of the damned if you do, damned if you don't that a lot of these sacrifice mirrors create whenever they just have a Mayhem Devil.
And what I actually find a little bit interesting about this now, too, is that maybe if you're English, you're saying in that spot, okay, let's get through all of this garbage and all of these nonsense triggers, all this other stuff, and I might lose some stuff and so on and so forth, whatever, with the idea that all I have to do is get Corval on the battlefield with your resources exhausted, and if I do that, you don't have anything as good as Corval because we're playing with open deck lists, and heck, no one's playing Corval in this tournament but me.
Yeah, exactly. I'm looking over Bonde's deck list, and I don't see anything that will ever kill a Corval.
Right?
When I say ever, I mean ever.
And as this big dragon gets larger, and we both know this thing, it takes really one untap.
Right. It feels like it has a Titan ability where you go, oh yeah, getting to attack is just kind of gravy, but the sizing of Corval just gets out of control.
And there's a backup Corval just in case. You see Fabled Passage in hand. We've got, Cauldron Familiar to come back with the Witch's Oven. Witch's Oven is active right now. Mayhem Devil's never going to be able to chase down Corval as far as damage is concerned. At least it certainly looks that way right now. So if you're English, you've got the opportunity now to build a pretty big Corval. Mayhem Devil triggers will occur, yes, but you're not really that concerned.
No, and the big reason that Inglis is doing this on his turn rather than Bonde's is because that makes it so Bonde is less likely to be able to build enough triggers with his own Mayhem Devils to take down Corval.
Here is a second Mayhem Devil, so we may see a response here from Inglis. That doesn't really surprise me. You're going to get a Mayhem Devil trigger on the stack because Cauldron Familiar has been sacrificed by Witch's Oven. So now Corval will trigger, get a Cauldron Familiar back, Mayhem Devil trigger resolves, get your food token, and now the Mayhem Devil's on the battlefield. 7/7 Corval. Can Inglis win next turn? And I guess the bigger question is, does he even need to?
That extra Cauldron Familiar is actually a great pickup because it just drains in a spot where this Corval is close to lethal.
Yep.
So 13, that's an 8/8. Sacrifice to Oven, or it'll become a 9/9, 10/10, down to 12. Cauldron Familiar. I believe that Bonde is dead because of Phyrexian Tower being a sacrifice outlet.
Okay. And one thing that works itself into the equation here is a Braid makes it a little bit easier. I guess I would say you have way less to fear. Good game is announced.
Oh, that's a GG.
And we're going to see David Inglis go through a couple of clicks here, but we had a feeling that this one could, even though it is intricate, it can be pretty quick. And you were seeing deck building paying off here in a very meaningful way, where so many players have gone towards Collected Company, Bulls to Citadel, and a couple other things. David Inglis kind of went retro on you with Corval and Trail of Crumbs, and kind of half-jokingly said it's been a long time coming, insofar as we haven't been doing the SCG Tour online all that long, but the results kind of speak for themselves for David Inglis, a.k.a. Tangrams. Another dominant performance, and finally, it's going to be a trophy here in just a second, Emma.
Yeah, look at this. 11 life. 11 in the air. About to be 12.
Corval is no joke, folks. It is no joke.
Slams the door. That attack, 12 damage. It's done.
We have our